Hello and welcome to this Coachvox AI how-to video. My name's Ben, and in this one, we're going to be looking at the engagement training room, teaching your AI to engage just as you'd like it. Let's get started. So here we are in the engagement training room, and this is in 3 different sections. Now, the most important one of these is the first one, starter prompt. So firstly, what is a starter prompt? Well, whenever we're interacting with an AI, the input that we give it is called a prompt. And the challenge that some people have when they're just looking at your AI is, well, where do I start? What do I say? Do I say hello? Do I introduce myself? What kind of questions should I ask? Well, this is why we want some starter prompts. So firstly, where does a starter prompt appear? So I'm going to head over to fine-tuning to give you an idea of exactly what a starter prompt is in terms of how it looks on your chat interface. Here we are in training room 6, fine-tuning, and you can see that these starter prompts appear just above the input box. So your users are going to be able to write something that they want in the input box if they like, or they're probably going to hit one of these starter prompts. So I'm going to head back over to the engagement page. As you can see, the starter prompts are inputted here. Now you can add as many as you'd like, but we're only ever going to show a maximum of 4. You can have 1, 2, 3, or 4, but we're never going to show more. You simply add row, enter the prompt that you would like, which could be a question or a statement, and you toggle that on. You can obviously continue to edit them, you can delete them, and always remember to save. So why do we give you this toggle option? Well, of course, you can add plenty of starter prompts here, and you're going to choose those 4 to work with. However, maybe you have some limited time offers periodically. Maybe you sometimes run challenges for your audience, 30-day challenges, for example, and you might want to have certain prompts live at certain periods. But if you don't want to show that starter prompt, you don't want to have to just delete it and then remember what you put the next time you want to add it, which is why we give you the option to toggle on and off. Now, not only does it give your audience a good idea of what they should start to say to your AI, but you actually can guide the conversations far better when you're using starter prompts. So you're obviously going to train your AI to respond to that prompt really well. Okay, so you're going to have this prompt and your desired completion in your training data. And we can basically get people to the outcome you'd like far quicker. So for example, if you are running a promotion of a product, you can add the prompt here. Just tell me more about that promotional offer. Or you could say, what's the best price for your something offering, for example. And of course, you're then going to provide that completion immediately, maybe with a link to that page or some other call to action. Now that's a very salesy approach, but maybe you have something else in terms of your coaching or mentoring style or program that is something common that you want your audience to ask and that you have a good response for. So this is why starter prompts are so important, because it helps you gauge and guide those conversations. The second section of the engagement page is called framing information, and there are 2 sliders that you have to complete. Now, they're similar to the style sliders that you saw in training room 1, but they're much less to do with the personality and style of your AI, but more a tactic that you want it to use when it's engaging. So the first slider is all about how much background information your AI should have before it starts helping the end user. So for example, let's say someone went to an AI investment coach and said, hey, I've got $100,000 that I'd like to invest. Would you prefer your AI to start making suggestions immediately? Or would you like your AI to start gathering more background information? How much other cash have you invested before? What percentage of your net worth does this represent? Are you looking for a high risk option or a low risk option, for example? So none of these affect necessarily the coaching style or the personality, but it's whether you just want to really get into helping sooner or you want more information. Now, of course, the AI isn't going to take these extremes, okay? The AI's goal is to always be useful and helpful to your audience. So even if you are at one end of the spectrum, if your AI needs a little bit more information, it's going to ask if it needs it. If you set your slider right up to I want to know everything, it's obviously not going to continue to ask questions, because that's not going to be a great user experience. So in truth, the difference between these settings is quite small, but if you'd rather one way or the other, this is where you can modify that a little bit. Now, the next slider is another nuanced one. This is to do with how your AI uses your training data. Do you want there to be a very strong preference to pretty much always use what you have in the training data? Or would you be less bothered if it kind of used the collective information of the internet? Now, we tend to not recommend the only my content setting unless this is an internal tool. So it's something that you've trained with your systems and processes and only your team members are going to have access to it. So it doesn't matter that your AI doesn't have good responses, and also you don't want it to necessarily make up information. And of course, every point along the slider is going to go the opposite way. So right at the other end, if there's training data to draw upon, it will use it, but equally, if it thinks there might be something better elsewhere, it's going to use other information. So to reiterate, there's only a small difference between these two settings. We recommend that 0.3 is probably solid for most people to start with, and this is something we're actually kind of always playing with and always perfecting. The final section on the engagement page is let down information. Now, this is the language your AI will use if it doesn't have a good response. Now, this is far more likely to occur if you've chosen only my content, but it can happen if an audience member asks a specific question, let's say about a product or a service, where there is, in theory, a factual answer, but you don't have that in your training data. Your AI is simply going to say, I don't know the answer, basically. But we want to make sure it does it in a style that you're comfortable with. And this is why, similarly to Training Room 2, we allow you to put in your own words. So there's a few pre-fills that you can select, but you can also add additional reasons down there and simply press enter, and they will add as these little pink additional sentences. You can, of course, delete these as you need. And as always, make sure you hit save to save them. One final thing, whenever we're typing in responses for your AI to use, just double check spelling. We don't want any typos creeping in there in case they get carried forward. So that was the engagement training page. The first part of it is where you should spend your time and effort, not only choosing those starter prompts, but ensuring you have the equivalent training data in Training Room 5. And the other parts are going to be super simple to check out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.